walking under a ladder, opening an umbrella indoors, don't step on manholes, knocking on wood, put keys on the table, and spit 3 times if you see a black cat, and if your piece of cake falls to the side, you will never get married. These are some of the superstitions that I grew up with, but what about sewing and knitting superstitions? Hi, my name is Matilda and welcome back to Miss Matti. In today's video, we will dive into some sewing and knitting superstitions. I found a lot of interesting and fun ones. Some of these superstitions I was already aware of, but a lot of them were actually news to me. Many of the sewing superstitions surrounded scissors. And there might be good reasons for that, because if you don't handle your scissors safely, accidents can happen. But some of the sewing superstitions surrounding scissors were a little bit more in the supernatural realm. Maybe I should not play with my scissors like this. I might need to stop playing with my scissors and put them down on my table, because according to Egyptian folklore, if you idly play with your scissors, it will bring you bad luck. Another scissor superstition that I've heard is that if you drop a pair of scissors, it's a sign that a lover is unfaithful. It didn't say that your lover is unfaithful, it just said a lover is unfaithful. So maybe it's up to interpretation and investigation to find out who it is. Also, I learned that scissors are not supposed to be given as a gift. And if your friend gives you a pair of scissors, your friendship will be cut in half. So scissors should apparently only be bought, not given as a gift. And if you are given them as a gift, if you do give the giver a little bit of money, this curse will not apply. Reversely, a friend of mine said that you should never buy your own tarot deck, that you should only be given tarot cards. I do not know if that's true. If there are any tarot card readers watching, let us all know. What's the deal with tarot decks? Should they be bought or given? What's your take on this? And is there any other superstitions surrounding things that should be bought or given only? There is a lot of sewing and knitting superstitions surrounding when not to start a project, when to start a project, when not to work on a project, and apparently on Wednesday and Fridays you should not use a needle or scissors, bake bread, or sew flax. Another superstition from southern Indiana says that if you cut out a project on a Friday and if you do not finish that project the same day, the person whom the garment was intended for will not live on. Yikes. And about Fridays, apparently you're not meant to start a quilt or cast on a knitting project on a Friday either. I don't know why, but most likely it is good or bad luck. And in Värmland, Sweden, you were not supposed to start a new weaving job on any Friday. I wonder why it's always Fridays. Is this because it's the end of the work week or something else? Let me know in the comments down below if you know. A very well-known sewing superstition is that you should never sew on a Sunday, because if you do, you will have to rip up all those stitches once you get to heaven. I don't want to do that. I definitely do not consider that going to heaven. But if you use a thimble, apparently you're safe. I don't know why and what magic a thimble does. Maybe it's one of those, like they said, to force you to use a thimble, get that habit in. In southern Sweden, Easter week was the time to set up a new weaving loom, but you could not start a new weaving project on a Monday. Okay, there seem to be rules for almost all weekdays. Which days can I freely start projects and do projects on? Tuesdays, Saturdays? I think I need to keep track of all of this and write these down.
So do not start projects on Fridays, and
I do not know how you can remember all of these. There is also a lot of superstitions surrounding New Year's. For example, I read somewhere that you will cut off your fortune if you use scissors on New Year's Day. And apparently, you should always sew a pillowcase on New Year's Eve to hold off all your troubles. The next New Year's superstition surrounds gansies, and if you do not know what a gansi is the knitted woolen jumpers traditionally worn by sea fishermen in the UK. If a gansi wasn't fully knitted by midnight on New Year's Eve, the gansi would not be finished because apparently the devil could be in it. Yikes. If I followed this superstition, I would have to ditch a lot on my UFOs. We will get into a lot more knitting superstitions in just a moment, but first let's dive into some black magic from 17th century Sweden. So back in the days when they were laying out linen cloths on the fields to let the sun bleach them, there were at risk that these linen cloths could be stolen. And after spending hours and hours weaving these cloths, you definitely did not want that to happen. In 17th century Småland, they apparently had a ritual to prevent thievery that consisted of digging up a bone in a cemetery, then dip this bone in running water, for example a stream, and most importantly while saying the following: Den person som tillfogat sig min vara ska ej ha ro, varken natt eller dag, varken sittande eller liggande, varken gående eller stående, utan själva som detta ben, till han återbär min vara. Which sort of roughly translates as, the person that has stolen my goods shall not rest, neither night nor day, sitting or laying down, walking or standing, but shiver like this bone till he returns my goods. Maybe try this next time someone has stolen your Amazon packages. I don't know why, but there is a lot of digging up bones in Swedish folklore. I really wonder if people actually did this, and if they did it actually work? Let's dive into some knitting superstitions. If you are in Iceland, you should not knit on your doorstep in winter, as this will keep the temperatures frigid and lengthen the winter. And thinking of the climate in Iceland, you do not need more winter than necessary. But you can still knit in the winter, just keep your knitting inside the house. Now let's dive into the curse of the boyfriend sweater. I think of all the superstitions that I'm talking about today, this one is the most alive and well. If you have never heard about it, the curse of the boyfriend sweater is that if you hand knit and gift your significant other a sweater, you will put your relationship at risk. You should only ever hand knit a sweater for your partner if you're married, and if you're not married, stick to socks, hats, etc. But in my experience, that can also put your relationship at risk. I have never knitted a sweater to any of my partners that I was not married to. Actually, I do not think I have knitted my husband a sweater either, but I started in previous relationships several knitting projects that I never ended up gifting them because the relationship ended. Do you have any curse of the boyfriend sweater stories? Let us all know in a comment down below. Two very superstitious groups besides dressmakers are sea fishermen and theatrical folks. And the next two combine these with knitting. If a gansi was still on the needles when the person it was intended for passed on, it will not be completed. Instead, you would unravel the gansi and put the yarn aside for at least a year before it's being reused. And when it comes to theater and knitting, apparently it is bad luck to knit on stage. However, this seems to only apply to the actors that are on stage, not to the audience. So if you're planning to go to a theater performance in the near future, feel free to bring your knitting project. Other knitting superstitions include adding one mistake in every project to hide them from the fairies. Knitting your hair into a project will bind you to the recipient, no matter if you did it intentionally or accidentally. Do you know of any other sewing or knitting superstitions that I did not mention in this video? Do let us all know in a comment down below. Also, let us all know if there are any superstitions that you live by. If you like this video, you most likely will like this video over here as well. And until next time, bye!